Last Pine Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content and is recorded in advance. The following episode was originally recorded on February 18th, 2021. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in the shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me, I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome to the New Way podcast. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Mr. Ben Wilson.
Hi.
This is the New Way where we break down pop culture so you don't have to. And today, right now, we're going to break down some pop culture because today we saw a polarizing trailer where Ben and I had a disagreement of opinion based on the quality of said movie in the trailer.
I don't think that it's that much of a disagreement necessarily when it comes down to brass tacks. First off, I'm assuming that you were listening to this in your car or on your mobile device of some ilk. However, Matt, you're wearing a shirt that says Mela Kaliki Maka.
I am wearing a Christmas shirt with a Santa with no shirt and Hawaiian shorts with snow on him.
Doing the hang 10.
Well, I wore this today for all of my meetings with my business partners who live in the state of Texas, who at the time of this recording are undergoing a massive snowstorm, whereas we here in Florida, we've had some rain, but it's been in the 80s. So we are dealing with a diametrically opposed things. What's actually very funny is that Ben brought, I knew he was going to say something on the video, and I was really concerned it was the fact that I have a gigantic zit on my forehead that is it's got its own heartbeat and should be lanced or burned off at the stake like a witch. It's
Matt,
big.
if I want to talk to the zit, I'll just talk to the zit by itself.
He's been running the whole podcast so far.
Zit, what's up? He'll be like, I am Zit.
He's really into the movie we're about to talk about, which is Mortal Kombat, which was a trailer ran today, and it looks decidedly cheesy and silly, but for some reason I just couldn't help but be excited by it. And then so I shared the trailer. And what was your immediate response, Ben? I believe it was, that looks god awful or something like that.
No, so here's the thing is that it was just the dialogue was so bad just so overtly telegraphed. And here's the thing, I'm all in for a super cheesy movie. I'm totally down for that. But if you're gonna make an effort to make the visuals edgy and modern, and you're actually trying to make a gritty update of Mortal Kombat, you can't keep the dialogue from the 1996 pseudo masterpiece.
But you have to. The catch-22 of making a Mortal Kombat movie. There is no reason to make it other than to make it silly.
See, you remember 5 years ago, J. Michael White directed these shorts that brought the Mortal Kombat thing into the real world. That was cool. I really was totally digging on that because they had real world explanations for all of these characters. And I liked the contextualization of that. I was like, you either go really far that way or you just lean into the fact. And I feel like maybe this is just leaning into the fact that it is super cheesy, and they were just taking the trailer super seriously, and that's I still think that's
no. I don't think your read on the trailer is incorrect as far as what the tone of this movie is, and the tone is 100%. It is half of one, half of the other. But for me, that's kind of what I don't mind the idea of taking all the silliness of the 1996 movie, and the silliness of the game in general, but updating it with badass visuals and still the funniest part of the trailer is the last 20 seconds are literally every catchphrase from the game, which is just amazing.
He should have just said Sub-Zero wins. I mean, that would have been...
The only thing that did not appear that should have appeared in the trailer was this. Which is from our, of course, video game episode where Ryan coined Mortal Kombat. Oh man, yeah, it is. Well, it was funny. So after we talked about it, I was curious because I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. So I looked up the credits behind Mortal Kombat because I was kind of curious who put this film together. So the director has directed nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. There is a single other credit that seems to be...
He's a stunt coordinator.
So hold on, because I'm curious.
No, I think he's not. He hasn't directed anything, but I think he's a stunt coordinator. I think he's going like the same route as the John Wick guys did, like Chad Stahelski or whatever, the guy who directed John Wick 2 or whatever. But
he does not have stunt credits. He has a producer credit and a director credit, both on Mortal Kombat, and a video short from 2014 called The Nighttime Economy. That is the entirety of his IMDb. No stunts, no special thanks, no PA work, no... I don't know that this person exists. For all we know, this is being directed by someone... This is a pseudonym. I don't know.
It's being directed by an AI.
His name is Simon McQuaid. Oh, it's by Quaid from...
This is like that meme where they're just like, we made a robot read, we made a robot play 300 games of Mortal Kombat. This is the script he came up with.
That is probably not at all far from the well, so then I looked up the writers, and the first writer I get to, same thing. The guy's got like a half of a credit and then Mortal Kombat. So at first I was like, oh my God, like who greenlit this or funded this? I couldn't tell. And then I find these two other writers, and they have a very interesting mix of credits between them. One of them, these will make sense, wrote Doom, the Doom screenplay for that video game movie.
Well, that's not a winning endorsement right there.
The Expendables, the first Expendables, not the sequels. He wrote Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla, also great stuff. But then he wrote and created that Jean-Claude Van Johnson series, the Jean-Claude Van Damme sitcom, not a sitcom, but comedy that was on Amazon. It's actually pretty good. Then Zombieland sequel, Wonder Woman 84. We start to slide down, and then
the Zombieland sequel is fine.
I haven't seen that one. Wonder Woman 84 script could use some work, but then he's got Mortal Kombat. He is also the writer behind Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings, which is an upcoming Marvel film, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2. So he's got some
sailed upwards.
Yeah, it's got connections somewhere. And then the other guy, wrote the Cloverfield Paradox and 22 Jump Street. I have no idea.
They have pictures of somebody naked.
and right now they're in the cut of Mortal Kombat until such time as they get paid and more projects brought to them. But here's
the thing. I mean, I feel bad saying this just for like unequivocal support, but if Marvel liked the take, then I'm sure that they got chops.
Yeah.
And the thing is actually, like, you look back on it, Doom is like only half of a failed movie. Like,
sure,
there are parts of that movie that actually work really well.
Oh yeah.
It was just very poorly directed and very poorly executed and poorly cast.
No,
I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I look at these, and we also I didn't look farther into it to see what their actual role was, and they may have a story credit for something, mainly because
they may have written the original script.
Yeah, they pitched something 10 years ago that they get a credit. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny to, like, the one guy makes perfect sense. I'm like, oh yeah, what happens when you combine Godzilla and Doom and like all these things? You get a Mortal Kombat movie.
I mean, but a lot of people's argument about Godzilla is that there wasn't enough monster action. It was just all too much melodrama and just like interpersonal shit, So
yeah, it was that one didn't, as you remember, that one for whatever reason didn't quite work for me. But oddly enough, some of the drama, I mean, the Cranston stuff, of course. I mean, that's Cranston. Cranston will sell fucking anything at any point.
Well, the first 10 minutes of that movie are fantastic.
Yeah.
With no monsters.
Exactly. The other,
we both agree on that.
The other thing that we've been watching over here in the Last Pint area is WandaVision, and we won't spend too much time on it in this episode. But if
by the time this airs, it's going to be over and done. We will have already seen the behind the scenes episode.
I cannot wait.
I'm really looking forward to that.
It really, you're kind of watching Disney Plus start to come into its own as far as taking
it's a
properties.
Flex is what it is.
Yeah.
This is a straight up narrative flex. And what I also love is that apparently what I did not realize until today is that Falcon and Winter Soldier, so the upcoming series that starts 2 weeks after WandaVision ends, is rated R. It's a hard R rating.
Nice. I wasn't aware of that. It looks very Lethal Weapon-ish, which is totally okay in my books. If you're going to ape that's a good thing to ape.
But yeah, they said that it's going to be the first one that comes on with like the parental advisory ahead of time of saying this is not, family friendly necessarily all the time.
I like it. I like that they've skirted that just enough on WandaVision. There's a couple of language beats that get cut or shortened or cut off at moments, but they've been pretty friendly with it.
But if you actually notice in the most recent, at the timing of the taping of this episode, the most recent WandaVision episode, although we get a new one here in a couple hours, is Kat Dennings, our favorite, Matt and I's favorite, Kat Dennings. She literally says, "Oh fudge." And she says
really?
Fudge. No. If you listen to it, they were just like, oh no, she said fudge.
That's funny.
And
I thought they just cut her in the middle of it, but that's pretty great.
You can hear her say fudge, which is so funny.
Yeah, it is we will spend more time on this on the post WandaVision and give our kind of our spoilery discussion of it, because it is a great. I can't say it's the spiritual successor to Lost in any way, but it learned a lot. Like many modern TV shows, it learned from what Lost did well and what Lost didn't do well, and it took that.
I learned from watching you.
I mean, it's great. Like, it really is great when things are referential to something, even when it, we've talked a gazillion times about how polarizing Lost is, but there's no denying, no matter what, that it was iconic.
It was powerful and iconic for sure.
Television, and it launched a lot of things that tried to do Lost and couldn't, and then it launched that by the actual creator with The Leftovers, and now we have a puzzle box show that's an actual puzzle box with answers, and it's in an existing universe, which is amazing.
And it's slowly peeling back the layers just the way that you wish Lost would. Where it's just like, wow, you're actually getting you're getting more contextual, even though they're definitely asking more questions, you're getting better contextualization every single episode. And you feel like it really is building to a big reveal, and that's fucking fantabulous.
Absolutely.
I really do think that, and I'm really excited that WandaVision's the number one television show in the world right now.
No shit, is it? That's fantastic.
It's the number one television show in the world.
Good for them. That is a badge of honor, and a lot of people were iffy or were harsh on it at first. But coming from a pure TV geek who grew up on television, it's not
who
just
were roughing on it at first, just didn't realize what they were getting themselves into.
But it is at every turn, in addition to being a Marvel show and a Lost puzzle box, it is a love letter to television.
To television, yeah.
And it could serve as a Smithsonian the time capsule to watch the evolution of TV, and then it gets meta and brings that into other parts of the show, but we don't want to spoil that right now. But yeah,
I think the artistry of the show is just absolutely. I mean, even within the context of the Marvel universe, I think the artistry is relatively unparalleled. it's super unique, and it really, really gives me great hope for all the upcoming series, the Disney Plus series that Marvel is doing. Because, like, for example, She-Hulk, like our friend and member of the show, Nick Zancroci, you know, our friend, a friend of the show, a friend of ours, said that it's basically a procedural lawyer or law-based comedy that sometimes has mutant shit in it. So basically it's like, oh, we're going to have Boston Legal, only the lead, played by Tatiana Maslany, is going to occasionally turn to She-Hulk. I am fucking on board for, because it's just showing you how Marvel is doing all of the right things. They're just taking all the right moves and all the right risks. And that's why at this point, I'm just like, you know what? Throw my hands up in the air. I can't fucking fault them for anything that they do. Well, just today was announced, Danny Elfman finally coming back to work with Sam Raimi again for Doctor Strange 2. We're going to have another Elfman Marvel score, which is fantastic, because I actually really love the score of Ultron. I thought the score of Ultron was one of the best parts of that movie.
Well, and that's another thing that we'll talk more on WandaVision. But yeah, in general, in Marvel in general, what's great is that I think there was a lot of apprehension, even on fan side, on my side, of going into this phase 4 after, you know, ending on, you get Endgame, and it's such a fucking just giant Endgame and Infinity War. I count them really as one cohesive thing, but you get to this conclusion, and you're like, okay, there are definitely things I'm looking forward to in phase 4, and there's going to be a new Guardians, and I'll get a new Strange, and I'll get a new and that's great, all the familiar, but you were kind of like, what is the next fucking some Strange?
Get some Strange. That's
saw that hit you like a lightning bolt. I think it's really interesting that
we all want. It's been a long 2020.
This is true.
2021. All we want some Strange, man.
Dude. Not even fucking get started on that one. That's for after hours. I think WandaVision has made me more excited for what they have the ability to do moving forward than anything else that Marvel's really. This is how I felt with Guardians as well. Guardians was another one of those things that I got to Guardians of the Galaxy and I was like, oh shit, like they've jumped into this new arena. And I've got a talking raccoon and a tree and all the shit, and it fits. It works in this universe.
The sandbox just widened. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, now they've got so much they can play with. And I agree with that.
And then one last quick thing to discuss, because Ben and I have been talking about this, and I'm sure some of our listeners are curious for our take on it. But both of us just finished the new miniseries version of The Stand. This is the second miniseries that has addressed the Stephen King novel from the late 80s, early 90s. And it was interesting because I was really on board. I watched it in kind of a bubble, other than Ben had kind of said a few things here and there about it. But I watched it, and I didn't learn until I got to like the very end of it. I started reading a little bit more on the internet, and people were slamming it, which I thought was sort of strange. But there was one noteworthy thing in it that I texted Ben, and Ben knows I don't much, especially nowadays, focus too much on negative things, but there is a direction choice and a performance choice in it for a specific character that might be
by a good director, and
yes,
I think objectively saying a very good actor.
I'm a huge Perks of being a Wallflower fan. I like Ezra Miller a bit, but he plays the trash can man, played by Matt Frewer, aka Max Headroom, in the original miniseries. And the character is a crazy-ish, not crazy-ish, a crazy character in general, but the performance they chose, and it's not even I know a lot of people didn't like the subject matter, and spoiler alert, the opening on him is that he sets a bomb, then he runs away and he sits on a couch and explodes the bomb, and he jerks off while watching the bomb explode. And a lot of people were really upset by that, and I was like, no, that didn't bother me. I thought that was kind of interesting. But his vocalizations, the character turns into Mr. Peepers, which I don't know how many of you watched SNL back in the day with Chris Kattan, where he played like the half monkey, half human hybrid Mr. Peepers. but it's a spastic, Gollum-y character that sort of just screeches and doesn't talk.
And he doesn't really, it's not so much that he does that, it's that he does that constantly.
And nothing but that.
And nothing but that. Like, if he had done that for one scene, I would have been like, oh, that's a nice little flourish there or whatever. But it's like, he cannot basically speak. He just kind of squeals and like runs around like a little fucking, like a leopard.
He's somewhere between Gollum and Mr. Peepers. He lopes and he crawls and he squats. But I was going to pull the sound of him for us here, but I couldn't bring myself to do it because it's the scene in Dumb and Dumber where he asks if you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world. It's just screeches.
And I understand like what they were trying to do. That's the thing. It's like I'm not going to fault them for it.
Destroy my brain.
Because he's in it. I mean, like literally, Ezra Miller is probably in the entire show for an entirety of 7 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not in it for that much at all. And I'm thinking maybe when they were cutting it together, he was in there a lot more, and they were just like, "Fuck, we can't." No.
I had a different theory that they added the screeches in post, and they added more of that on there than actually was shot on set because they liked it. So I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't think so. I think that they were just like, oh shit, we can't use any of this because I mean, like honestly, like the 1995 TV version of The Stand had more of the trash can man in it than
this
version did.
Well, and what's funny is this had technically like an extra hour compared to that version. Yeah.
Well, and the other interesting thing is I do like, even though I agree with you that it was a bad performance or a bad decision to do what he did, the last moment in the hotel, I actually do like that scene. Yeah. I like the way that he played it because it contextualizes things a little bit differently than the last series in the book even does.
Sure.
Where it's just like, wait a second. There's like, when you have the forces of good and evil playing on both sides, it kind of gives you a little bit more contextualization. Anyways.
Yeah. And the other thing we talked about, and this is really interesting to me, and maybe this is another podcast at some point to go into more cases like this, but it's very interesting, especially in TV. So one of the main characters in The Stand is Randall Flagg, who is also a character that shows up offhandedly in different forms in other King books, but as Stephen King Stephen King says that the Man in Black in the Dark Tower series is Randall Flagg. Yeah,
which I don't like because they're different characters.
Well, yeah, and it's this idea that he's not necessarily Satan himself either. It seems more to be like a minion of his, a representative of his, maybe perhaps is a better way to.
I would say he's Satan's best man.
Yes, so he's Paul. Now I totally understand it. The walking man. I got it. Okay, so that makes
the walking man
sense. So they cast
the Man in Black tie.
They cast Alexander Skarsgård, which is great casting. Yeah. On paper, I was like, oh, I'm on board with this. And then he shows up in the show, and Ben had kind of mentioned it ahead of time as well. He's like, I'm not entirely sold on his performance. And so I watch it, and I'm like, yeah, it's that character, the Randall Flagg character, and they do an exceptionally good job of this in the 95 miniseries, which is it's hard not to compare the two because they follow a lot of the same just major beats and major things. Yeah. They're like, but they're pretty. There's not a lot of differences.
The production value is obviously like there's a huge difference in production value. But.
So you've got this character who's supposed to be charming. They always give him a Southern accent. He's got this denim outfit on, and he's the like the devil. He is luring people in.
The only scene in the first half of the show I was sold on Skarsgård on was the scene in the prison where he's, which I really liked that scene. And I thought it was kind of cute and fun.
He's close. He's really close in that scene. And then there's a sort of a prologue-ish scene that is a new thing written by King for this new miniseries. And it's another scene with Flag after the finale of of his character, basically. It's a kind of a postscript. And he's 100% the character that from the book and that matches he's charming and he's wry and a little sarcastic. And you get like, oh yeah, people would follow this dude. He's not all intensity. And I was really curious about how the show was shot. So I looked it up, and they shot episode 1 and episode 9 together first. So that was his first stab at Flag, was that scene. And it's very clear by the times he shows up after that they have changed that performance to be more sinister. I don't think they trusted that it would be scary to weigh over it, which is kind of a misfire, in that the reason why he's scary is because he's so charming and interesting and fun that like, okay, then when he gets dark, it's like, oh shit, that's right, this guy's bad news. But it's interesting. It's definitely, if you're a King fan and or you like the miniseries, it's worth a watch. I know a lot of people did not like it though.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, some of those maybe major missteps aside, I thought that Greg Kinnear and James Marsden
Kinnear was great.
But Kinnear was Kinnear gets my best in show on that.
And Kinnear also
so good.
The introduction of his character and his home life in that as well, of how they paint him as this, not new age, but like just this yuppie but super smart NPR
like
listening
atheist.
Yeah, stoner. He's just the smartest guy in the room, and he's feeding him caviar and shit to show off. I'm like, you ever have caviar? Like, I agree that was dead on. There's a lot to like in it. There really is.
And I also really like I mean, I like a lot of the characters that they brought about, but the guitar player,
Nick.
Well, I mean, I thought he was really done really well.
He was. So. There were a few. Yeah, I thought Harold was done well. I thought Nick was done well. I did not like what they did with Lloyd as much. And there was better subtext with Lloyd in it that they never addressed, which I couldn't get to the bottom to, of whether or not in this Lloyd was supposed to be gay. Because there's these weird hinting at that moments in it, but then it's not how it turns out. But yeah, that didn't work. Miguel Ferrer also just killed it. And it also bothered me when Clifton Collins Jr. shows up in the stand, because I'm like, that should have been Lloyd.
And he dies immediately.
Yeah, but I'm like, that was Lloyd. That character is exactly who should have been Lloyd and done that character. But I commend them for what they set out to do, and CBS did a pretty good job with the budget.
I still think that Josh Boone did a pretty good job bringing that to light. And if people are going to be super mad about the end product of that, they should probably be madder at Stephen King than Josh Boone.
I think that's a common thing, actually, that people aren't necessarily as mad. Because that is the one thing that is inherent in The Stand, which is funny as well. I love The Stand, and I've now watched multiple versions of it, and I've read the book. I also have a lot of problems of like, what's the point of some of the things that happen, and why do some of the character journeys happen, and what do they learn by the end? I don't know.
Matt, don't go rereading Stephen King thinking those things, because you're gonna go down a really, really bad rabbit hole.
Yeah, because it's kind of also like, hey, if Nick and Stu and Glenn and Ray all didn't exist,
or they could just they just walk out there start with. Nobody ever has to go to Boulder.
No, no one has to go anywhere. The Vegas happens on its own, irrespective of everything else that's going. The only thing that they prevent, they don't even. Yeah, I'll give Nick credit. Not Nick. I'll give Nick credit for Nadine doing what she does to stop that from happening, which is a pretty big deal of basically like stopping an Antichrist character. That's a good thing. That's the only thing that happens of note that anyone has any influence on in Vegas. Otherwise, nothing. Anyway, I want to get to our subject at hand. So we were moving away this year with kind of our special edition shows. We're just going to do them still, but we're going to spend a little more time on them and not hold ourselves to not talking about other things like Ezra Miller's performance in The Stand ahead of our things. So or that's not high pitched enough. It doesn't make my brain bleed. So it's not quite there. But we decided to focus on a director, and I really like. We are fans of this director. We have talked about some of his films on air before. We're going to talk about all of them today because there are not very many, despite the fact that he is probably one of the biggest and best directors working today. But he really only has
10 working
8
directors of all.
Of all time. I don't disagree with
of
that.
all time. Not of all time. I say he's top 10 working directors.
Working today. Gotcha. So we're talking about Sam Mendes, and we'll give you a very quick bio on him because I think it is kind of interesting based on the films that he winds up doing. He's born in England, but his dad is Portuguese and a university professor. His mom is a Jewish woman who's a publisher and an author. They divorce, and the mom takes him they move to another area in England. And what I think is kind of interesting is that a lot of his movies examine Americana, despite the fact that he has this multicultural upbringing and grows up his form in England. I mean, he's an English
he's a
British
Cambridge boy.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about him is that his start was in theater, and that's where he made his mark before getting into film. And although despite being super. Oh, go ahead.
You say that like his start was in theater. Sam Mendes was British theater. Like
yes.
He was the biggest rock star in British theater.
Oh, we're gonna get to because one of my favorite things he does is his big first hit in theater. When we get to that in just a sec, but I thought what's interesting is he starts in theater in earnest. But he said he always had this interest in film, and he had 3 movies that they list that were his seminal.
I know what they are. Wait.
Do it.
Repo Man?
Yes.
True Stories?
Yes. And the other is one I caught you watching at your house multiple times, oddly enough.
Debbie Does Dallas?
No, not that one, but not that one, but no, it's the other time.
What's the third one?
Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas, of course.
Yeah. He also was a star cricket player. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
And actually played at the Lords in like 1996 or 97.
In 96, like right before he's directing one of it's all right. We're gonna get to his thing. So he early stage work. He works with Judi Dench in an adaptation of The Cherry Orchard. Then he helms Sondheim's follow up to Into the Woods, Assassins. Does that. And then he does a reimagining revival of Cabaret, which was so monumentally good and different that show ran forever.
It changed the landscape of what had been done with that show. And then also he then took that to other shows like of course, Oliver.
Yes, I like all of these are like, and then he directed a dark revival of Oliver. And then he directed a dark revival of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Do you know who played Fagin in his revival?
Jonathan Pryce, who didn't want to play in, but wound up playing him.
Talked him into it.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. But yeah, he has this amazing film career, and you can go on YouTube right now, and you can watch. Way back in the day, he directed it for TV. The original version of Cabaret, before it went to Broadway, the only constant is the MC played by Alan Cumming. The show is the same Imagining had, but it actually it's a woman from Absolutely Fabulous who played Sally Bowles in the TV one. But you can watch the entire thing on YouTube for free, and it is that depiction of that show and the changing of the MC character and leaning into all the things that, granted, they couldn't actually get away with a lot back in the original version. It is amazing. And the Alan Cumming in Cabaret spawned so many wannabes of that style and thing, but eventually in a good way, in that it brought about more acceptance even in the theater world to stuff like that. And then that character everybody played that character at some point that was young and could sing. Neil Patrick Harris did it for a long time. John Stamos did the MC, and all of them did Alan Cumming's MC and I would say Alan Cumming and Sam Mendes. Their vision of that character.
At that point, it's like imitation is the form of flattery. You just like you can't do it better than what they are doing.
Yeah, if someone's going to do a reboot of Darth Vader, who are they going to sound like? It's going to always be James. It's not going to be Gilbert Gottfried's Darth Vader. That's going to just show up. You're not going
to sound like Bane.
Yeah. But yeah, he has this amazing theater career, and then he segs into film, and on his first feature film, first anything. Wait, you want to go back
let's go back. So
yeah.
So he actually wanted to go to film school before he went to theater. Got into theater. So because he was super interested in the form, he loved movies or whatever. Applied for film school, didn't get into film school. Ended up going and getting a degree in English, and then translated his love for the stage because he was an actor in high school into becoming, somebody who was involved with play direction and playwriting and all that type of stuff.
Familiar. This could have been our stories, Ben. Just didn't try hard enough.
Just the two of us. But anyways, yeah. So to pick back up on where you were on that story, yeah, he was very interested in film, and then guess who approached him?
This I don't know.
Who approached him?
No.
It was Steven Spielberg.
Oh.
So Steven Spielberg really loved his... Oh, yeah. This guy named Steven Spielberg who loved his adaptations of Cabaret and loved his adaptation of Oliver and said, by the way, DreamWorks. So
yeah.
He said, essentially, like, I'd love for you to come and direct a movie for us. And... Sam Mendes read a few scripts and then got a hold of American Beauty, which was a blacklist script the year before, and said, this is it. And I'm not changing a word. And we're shooting this.
And so American Beauty, in his first outing, he wins Best Director, Best Picture. The film wins Best Actor, Best Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Because Sam Mendes has worked with two major cinematographers who are arguably two of the top 5 best cinematographers. Maybe 10 for you, but for me, probably 5. Yeah, I mean, with Conrad Hall on American Beauty. And
I mean, Conrad Hall is arguably one of the top 3 cinematographers of all time, I would say. I mean, if you look at his body of work.
If Deakins does like another dozen great things, then you'll bump him.
Yeah. Bump him up. Yeah,
no love. He doesn't even get love from us on the podcast.
But Conrad Hall is definitively one of the greatest American photographers of all time. And
American Beauty is just a powerhouse of a movie that is, and yes, it is also a great script and it is also great performances and a lot of things, but Mendes just, he breathes all of that in there. And you have to think also how much his theater background is all of those actors in that movie and how their performances are pulled out.
Well, and I think that what makes me really interested in why he chose that movie is because it's visual stuff. It has a visual flair, which is actually really interesting. But the visual flair doesn't typically exist around the character moments. The character moments are usually played in wides where people are just kind of interacting, and it's very play-like. It's all in the transitional moments that the visual flair kind of plays its part. He directed the movie like a play. He rehearsed a lot,
which is something he's done on everything. He directs like a playwright.
Exactly. And so he rehearses a ton and gets these really, really affected, amazing performances. And he works with actors that are ostensibly fucking amazing. I mean, they're just, if you look from an objective standpoint, I think Sam Mendes is probably the talent he's worked with in all of his movies cumulatively is probably better than the talent of any other director has ever had the chance to work with. And I'm talking about Scorsese. I'm talking about fucking Spielberg.
And 2 of those movies are James Bond movies. So the fact that he continued the talent into those as well is a testament. And really, I had to do a double take when I went and looked and said there are only 8 movies. And it's rare that we do one of these where I have seen everything that this filmmaker's done.
And there are a couple of movies that people don't even talk about anymore.
Well, and we're going to get to one of those in a half a second. So we're not going to spend his follow-up to American Beauty, which now, of course, has all eyes on it. What is he going to do? And so he continues with working with some of the greats.
That's a graphic novel.
Yeah, he goes with a graphic novel.
In 2002, he adapts a graphic novel.
He casts Tom Hanks, Jude Law, and Paul Newman, and a very young unknown Daniel Craig in a film called Road to Perdition, which we covered in depth on episode 93. The short story is it is one of the most underrated, just beautifully done films from every standpoint, and I don't understand why people shat on it.
The most. I will go on a limb right now and say that I think Road to Perdition is the most underrated film of this century.
Wow.
I like, people do not give that movie credit. I would put that up there in my top 10 of this century easily. I think is a classic film. There was not a misstep. I don't think there was. I think every single moment in that movie to me works. Yeah. Everything works in that movie.
I'm with you. We've said it. It's one of the things we bond over. It is. I don't know what it was. I think so. I'm gonna go on a limb and say there's something very interesting about Sam Mendes' career that I think is very different from most filmmakers, especially very recognized, influential, big filmmakers, and that is that his movies are not alike. You can find a trope or two if you're really hunting, but the fact is most of his movies feel categorically different from the two movies bookending them. And
he's definitely like somebody who tackles the source material in the way that like this deserves this aesthetic. I
think that's why one thing that is underrated about him is that with the exception of Mank, most of the time I'm watching a David Fincher movie, I be like, if you told me, oh, that's directed by David Fincher, I go, yeah, I totally get that. Oh, that's a Spielberg, I get that.
Cold and disassociated.
Quentin, I get it, yeah. Scorsese, got it. Like, everybody's got their feel. I could show you
Woody
scenes
Allen,
from all 8 of these movies, other than maybe the 2 Bond movies, and if you can find shit that's real similar between them, you're a better film goer than I am, because he follows up Road to Perdition with Jarhead. And it's funny. So Jarhead was a movie that I remember seeing, except that every time I go back to thinking about it, I'm like, I don't remember anything about it. So I made a point before this podcast we were going to record last week. Drew watched Jarhead. I'm like, I don't think I actually ever watched Jarhead all the way through.
Surprisingly good.
It is. So I will say, other than Spectre, which we'll get to, which is the black mark. What's interesting is I think Jarhead is a completely eminently watchable movie. I understand why people had issues with it, and it doesn't take a political stance, which I read about. They cut a lot of that. But if you're going from a pure aesthetic and performance, I mean, Gyllenhaal and Skarsgård are fucking phenomenally good. And I mean, Jarhead comes out when Gyllenhaal is on the run of his life with Brokeback, Jarhead, and Proof are all in the same year. Like he is, I mean, really, and then Zodiac comes out the next year, like he's on his trajectory with it. He's phenomenally good in it. Skarsgård is never not good for me, really, in just about anything. He's one of those just eminently watchable people. But I was surprised at how it was another one of those. I'm watching this movie.
You have to discern which Skarsgård you're talking about.
Oh, this is this is Peter. The Peter, not Alexander, not Stellan. Skarsgård. It's a difference.
There's a difference between the Skarsgårds and the Skarsgårds.
Yeah, I can't keep track of all of these names. I just know that it's the Peter. It's just the Peter.
No. Yeah. The irony is that we talked about how I thought that Peter Sarsgaard would be an amazing Randall Flagg.
Yes. He'd
And
be anything. I don't understand why he's not cast more, and maybe he just doesn't want to work
he's
more.
kind of
I
difficult
don't know.
to work with, or at least he's very selective about what he works on.
Good. I mean, he was on an episode, a season of The Killing, which was not a very good show other than a couple performances, but he was electric. And as usual, you're watching him anytime he is on screen because he's got that weird, quiet, like that soft quality to his delivery that makes you very uncomfortable about what is underneath all of that.
And it makes you not soft when what's all underneath all of that.
I am alert and ready. Yeah, Jarhead is great. It's based on a novel about Desert Storm. It's also largely rehearsed and improvised, which is another one of those interesting combinations that
Mike Lee.
He brings people in and gets them in a group and works on it. But I didn't realize how much of it was improvised. I also forgot that John Krasinski is in it for like a half a second, and it's all a hit. And apparently every word he utters on there is John Krasinski. Like there was nothing written for his character other than he's at a typewriter and he makes hooch. And it actually makes his scene even more eminently enjoyable for just a little short time. But yeah, Jarhead. And what's funny is Sam Mendes will go on, as we'll get to at the end of this, to another war movie that couldn't look or feel or have a different vibe to it if it was. Than Jarhead. I mean, they're completely different. But let's dig into.
I mean, Jarhead to me feels like a deconstruction of war. It's like we're looking at the personalities behind a war that doesn't need to happen.
Yes,
it did feel political, even though it wasn't.
Yeah,
and I still remember, talking to people who were just like, "Oh, that movie sucked." I was like, "Dude, I kind of like. I don't know. I like this messaging a little bit, just because it wasn't trying to be political in the way that it was like portraying the people or the characters that were in there, but the situation just felt so neutral.
I think the interesting thing with it is that so I'm watching this movie essentially for the first time in 2021.
Yeah.
And I imagine if I was watching that in 2005, I might be angrier that it didn't take a side in it, versus now I'm just like, oh yeah, this is just talking about the futility of war. And I love that like they show like all the times they keep showing these soldiers movies to amp them up. They're also really sad. They're like the actual message behind, like they watch Apocalypse Now and they get all ramped up. I'm like, but Apocalypse Now is not pro-war. And they watch Deer Hunter and they're all like geared up for Deer Hunter. I'm like, yeah, these are not like super pro-war things. But yeah, it's. I think that might be some of why I was like, I didn't mind it.
You hear how Quentin Tarantino called Ad Astra Apocalypse Now in Space? I was just like, oh shit, you're right.
It's not at all wrong.
Like,
not at all wrong.
Holy shit, you're right. That's exactly the same movie.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I think with the stuff they cut, there's even a moment in Jarhead where someone starts to be like, hey, we're like protecting the oil wells, and you know who that's behind and stuff. And Sarsgaard literally just goes, no politics. And like that became it for the movie. Is like we're not going to address that. You make up your own mind based on the shit you're watching. It's pretty easy to figure out that there's a side.
That's good.
It's interesting. But now we go into the Mendes period that is the most interesting to me, because both of these movies hit me very hard, and both of them were right when I first met Ben, and we were kind of talking about films and really got into them.
I know One Is the Way We Go.
Yes, the other is Revolutionary
Road.
Yeah,
which are both very heavy movies. However, one's I would say is a drama disguised as a comedy, and I would say that the other movie is a tragedy disguised as a drama.
Yes. I don't think that's at all incorrect. So the first one we get to is Revolutionary Road. And Mendes does a couple of very interesting things with this film. One, he casts his then wife, Kate Winslet in the film. And then he casts Leonardo DiCaprio. And I don't know if you guys know, but those two were actually in a movie, a largely popular movie in the 90s called Titanic. And the casting choice of the hirsute, Romeo and Juliet from the past of the greatest love story of this generation, and revisiting them in a different couple 10 years down the road, and knowing that the story is going to basically be the de-evolution of their relationship is some of the most meta, like, doing the work and the casting for you. I'm a big fan of when people do that, and it makes what happens in the course of that movie hurt even more, because he's basically breaking America's hearts all at once.
Yeah. I mean, it was super calculated, and also I still feel like, and one of the things Kate Winslet said is that she was very hesitant to work in one of his movies because he was very clear about what he wanted from his artistic vision, and she didn't want to be an influence on that.
And they divorced shortly after.
Well, they divorced because he slept with Rebecca Hall.
Yes, that's part of it. But yes,
just part of it. Yeah. I mean, he had an affair. That's the reason. They divorced.
Much like Revolutionary Road.
I don't think that they divorced because of Revolutionary Road, but it is crazy that they made this movie together and then he left her essentially for another woman, which is that whole period of time is insane to me. Just to think about it, because I mean, I just can't imagine casting your wife in a film that's that intense.
Yes,
and then just basically saying, "Yep, gonna do that thing we just filmed."
Yeah, no, it's not just that it's not like he was directing her in a war movie. He's directing her in a movie about a husband and wife whose marriage is falling apart. And then he's like, "Well, that was a good idea." I decided.
I don't mean to presuppose anything, but
it would be like after Jarhead, he went and joined the army, the Marines, and he's like, "Well, we got a good idea."
Yeah, it was that was a little bizarre, but
and I unfortunately it's been a while since I've seen Revolutionary Road, so I can't speak.
It's a really hard movie to get through. I will say that the performances in that movie are just absolutely incredible.
I remember Zoe Kazan really standing out to me also in a small role, and Catherine Hahn.
Well, yeah, I mean, who won the Academy Award for that movie was our friend from Groundhog Day. What
am I missing? From Revolutionary Road?
Yeah, Revolutionary Road.
From Groundhog Day.
Didn't what's his face? He was in oh my god, it just escaped me. He was in Shape of Water. Didn't he win the Academy Award for that movie?
You're talking about Tall Frankenstein that your wife doesn't like. Why did I forget his name too? Now you've wiped it right out of my head. Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon.
Yeah.
Did he actually win for
the
that?
Academy Award for that movie?
I don't.
He was
but I remember that scene. I remember the scene, but maybe.
Let's remember, because afterwards I was like, I remember why. It's possible that he didn't win, but he was definitely nominated. I guarantee
he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Revolutionary Road. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
We'll get there eventually, folks.
Yeah, shit. Sorry.
No, sorry for me as well, being like, I don't know who the hell you're talking
Well, no, it's Michael Shannon. I can't believe I couldn't remember Michael Shannon because I mean, the crazy part was I've seen Michael Shannon be so good in so many things since then, like Get Shelter. I mean, god damn, holy.
Well, but
shit,
it's him.
what
It's
a
him and
performance.
Catherine Hahn are the other couple that are involved in
but
that.
They have some moments in that movie where they're just so fucking heartbreaking and just so.
So that's one thing I would like to draw to attention for Mendes as we kind of go through the rest of his career. He is really, really good at finding and casting and properly utilizing character actors in really meaningful ways.
Yeah.
And you look at that as a great example. Michael Shannon was not on anybody's radar at that point, and who's now become a phenomenally good character actor. Catherine Hahn as well. Catherine Hahn was coming off of Step Brothers. And she, by the way, not a slight on her at all because she's fucking hysterical in that, but there's somebody that recognizes, and I think that's that theater side of him that recognizes like, oh, this is the girl that plays your comic relief in these plays. Probably if she was given the right material could take that timing and effort and do really great things with it. And he does that in his next film, which is a movie that broke me pretty good, that Ben introduced to me in Port St. Joe just after New Year's one year. 2009, a movie called Away We Go. You probably have not heard of it. You're probably not aware of it. You've definitely not seen it.
Actually, hey, give us a quick rundown of the plot of Away We Go. I'm going to grab a beer right now and maybe just do that, okay?
So Away We Go is kind of a very simple idea. There is a couple who are kind of, not super rich at all. They don't really know what they're doing. They've gotten married. They don't have a lot of great family near them. And they find out that she's pregnant. And they say, and the couple is played by John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph. They are the couple. And they decide that they're going to figure out, we don't want to raise our kid here because we don't really know anyone here. So they decide to go and talk to his parents and say, hey, we want to raise our child near you. Parents are played by Jeff Daniels and oh God, I'm going to forget her name. It's Jeff Daniels and the plays the mom. Is it? It's Catherine O'Hara. It's Jeff Daniels and Catherine O'Hara. That play his parents, and they tell them at this point they are moving to like Finland or something, and they go, oh well, all right, well we don't have you guys to rely on. So he goes, you know what? We've got friends all over the U.S. Let's do a trip, and we're gonna go meet with all these people, and we're gonna decide which group we want to live near and help raise our children with. And side by side,
and it takes lots of strange.
Yes, and it is a
turns.
It's a great. I mean, even then I knew, but especially looking back on that movie at 40 and where I'm at, and Ben, you've got a family now, and where you're at, it is a movie that is very much examining what is the future of family, of bringing children into the world, of marriage, and all these things, and it is about as honest as what looks like that. You watch the trailer for that movie and it looks like a screwball comedy that they go to visit all these crazy people and they don't know.
It's got some great, like very random screwball comedy moments.
It has
in it.
Phenomenal laughs in it, but it also has some moments that are so true and so deep cutting that like they will break you. They really will. And this is probably the movie he shines most with his character actors, because everybody in it, you've got Allison Janney, you've got oh God, I'm gonna blank on her name, and she's the best
Melanie
part.
Linsky.
Melanie Linsky. You've got all of these side characters, and Maggie Gyllenhaal. And
Maggie Gyllenhaal at her absolute best and worst, which is great.
that is a great description.
She plays the most despicable character in the movie, and she is so good at doing it. I'm just like, I mean, honestly, sometimes I just like look at her. I'm just like, God, I fucking hate her just so much, just because of the character in that movie. She's just
yeah.
Her name is Ellen, and they would like walk up to her room, and it's just the
it's the letters LN. But
this is like in 2009. This is so well before like all of the woke.
Jim Gaffigan and Allison Janney play a couple. I mean, like to pull that off in what is essentially at the end of the day is a comedy drama. There are just some amazing things happened. I don't want to say much more about it other than I highly recommend you watch it.
That movie.
It is going to hit you in the feels in a different place depending on who you are and where you're at life. It doesn't really matter. It'll make you appreciative or jealous or something. And I think that's kind of the most amazing thing about what this filmmaker has done with his career is that could be a description of almost any of his. You watch American Beauty at different times in your life, and you're getting very different things out of that film at any one time.
I think Away We Go is definitely his unheralded masterpiece because I think it's just a very beautiful little film, and it starts and ends very quaintly.
It has an amazing opening.
The opening
one
is
of the
so fun.
Most amazing openings. Don't necessarily watch it with like your parents or family.
Don't watch that with your parents.
Because it's gonna take a turn. But yeah, it is.
Let's just say it starts with cunnilingus.
Yes, that's one way to put it. I don't know that word because I don't do it. But it's not.
Oh my god,
true. Really? I know that word, but I don't do it. So, all right. So this is kind of another amazing thing about Sam Mendes. So we've done American Beauty, Academy Award nominated, lauded film. Road to Perdition, a little less recognized, but still gets some Academy Award nominations.
Conrad Hall wins posthumously.
Yes. Jarhead, Revolutionary Road. We're seeing Oscar bait movies. Away We Go veers off of that in a different direction into a small indie film. And then we go, well, actually we go and direct a bunch of theater, including a reimagining of Willy Wonka and a dark reimagining of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory as a stage show. And then we say, hey, the Broccoli's have been knocking at our door. Let's direct a Bond movie. And
was it Rob?
It was Rob Broccoli Rob. It's a double. He bookends that name 100%. So he goes and directs Skyfall. He casts an actor he's worked with way back in the day, a decade earlier on Road to Perdition, Daniel Craig, who's now started to make a name for himself.
Daniel Craig has already been Bond.
What? Not in Skyfall. You mean later?
He didn't cast Bond. No, Bond. He was already Bond in Casino Royale.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're correct. I'm sorry. He was cast as Bond.
I was like,
he
what?
reunites with his actor. You're correct. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about that. He reunites with Daniel Craig and builds out basically how are we going to end the Bond franchise for the most part, because Craig doesn't really want to do it as much anymore. And he directs arguably
the best Bond movie of all time.
I mean, I'll say top 3 just to cover my bases, but as far as films that also happen to be Bond movies, yes, it is the most competent Bond movie ever made.
The film came out in 2012. It was my favorite movie of that year. It was shot by Roger Deakins.
You can look that up on our website, www.lastfinepod.com.
Phenomenal. And everything in that movie worked for me. I was so in love with Skyfall from the jump. And I think narratively it is, as a film, the only arguments I would say as far as a better film would be maybe Goldfinger, because Goldfinger is really perfectly paced as a Bond film. But if you talk about the psychology of the characters, I mean, the introduction of the villain in Skyfall is better than anything that's ever been done in any Bond villain film or Bond film ever.
And and what's really great for a scene like that. So we've definitely talked, kind of pushed on this a little bit, but
we've touched
but just in general, what Mendes does, Mendes, I don't know, was the proper pronunciation, but that intro of Silva and Bond is, I think, what he does best, which is that he is never relying just on himself to direct an amazing. It is everything combined into one is what makes what he does amazing. And that scene is how it's shot, how it's framed and looked at from the cinematography aspect, and how it's performed. And that is what a director does, is takes all of those elements and makes them work to his vision for the introduction of that character. And it's a character who appears at the end of a hall, completely small and tiny. You don't know what's going on.
And it takes 3 minutes for him to make his way to the front.
As he tells a story that becomes more and more close to what we are seeing. And it's direction 101. Like, it's great direction 101. And what is so great about it is it is very simple at what he's actually done. But it's not the simple concept as far as it's not a simple choice. He makes the choice to make that scene follow that way.
Especially the photography is not a simple choice. It's like, no. We're going to stay wide back here with our protagonist major in frame, and we're going to let this person walk up to them over the course of 3 minutes. That's not a safe choice.
And then also engage in a very hypersexualized first meeting with the two of them. It's amazing.
Cute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, no complaints here. It's amazing. It really is. And we've talked about it. And unfortunately, I don't want to spend too much time on Spectre either, because unfortunately, we follow up the greatest Bond movie with definitely not the worst Bond movie. 100% not the worst Bond movie.
Many worse Bond movies.
But maybe the most disappointing Bond movie based on what happened before it and the fact that he was directing again and should have been.
A lot of this can be attributed to the fact that he did not want to direct another Bond movie.
Yeah.
They pursued him to do it, and he said, I can't, because at that point, the writers were like, we want to do 2 back to back. He was like, well, that's going to take up 5 years of my life. I don't want to do that. I want to do these other projects. And so finally, they just rolled out the fucking money carpet for him, and they were just like, here's how much we're going to pay you to do one more Bond movie with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
And he had to say yes, because it was literally the most money that any director has ever been paid in the history of film.
That I did not know.
That's
all right.
True.
You know what? Anyone that is going to provide for their family, listen, he's sold out once in a career of 8 movies. I'm going to allow that 100%. And it's not a terrible movie. It is a poorly scripted movie that he couldn't save.
It just reminded me of that scene in Moneyball where he like passes across the thing about like how much he was getting paid. It was like, this would make you the highest paid general manager in the history of sports.
Yeah.
And he's just like, okay. No, like whatever.
And
but you know, he was essentially the highest paid director in the world, and he made a movie that sucked, I feel like, objectively.
Yeah.
But I don't fault him for that, because he definitely didn't have his heart in it.
No, and I'll also listen. Not every movie is going to you can't make every, and the track record he had up to that, and now has at least continued in one movie past that. So he follows up his back-to-back Bonds, one great, one negative, and you've got to also really look at this timeline, because he directs Away We Go in 2009, and then 2012 is Skyfall, 2015 is Spectre. And he doesn't direct another movie until release dates, at least, until 2019, when he directs 1917. And it's that's a decade of his life, basically, that was Bond movies before he's able to move on. And then he does such an amazing thing in that He takes
also one of the first movies he's written too.
Yes, he crafts a script around a story
that his grandfather
told him, and he goes back into the war territory, but instead of it being 1990s Desert Storm, it is now World War I, 1917. And he decides to make it appear to be a one-take, seamless shot movie. He's got Deakins on hand to do some of the most amazing and stunning work I've ever seen based on the conceit of how he's decided to shoot this. And he makes it even harder because it is a one-take movie that all of the dialogue has to be timed out on sets of steps so that the actors know, okay, well, the dialogue lasts 70 yards because the movie is always constantly moving with these two characters, mostly two characters. And if the movie sucked, I would still respect it for what it attempted to do because it's just a fucking swing for the fences, visceral, want to tell this story in a unique and interesting way. But for me, the movie, maybe a couple of moments I have issues with, maybe, but it works so well.
I don't. And I consider like my wife one of the biggest critics, but I think that we both agree it was the best movie of that year. I mean, it's so the conceit of the narrative when it is paired with the aesthetic vision of what's happening, it's so married to everything that like it draws you in, and that there's no way. And I love how a lot of the negative people were just like, oh, yeah, I guess it's Call of Duty the movie, you're like watching a cutscene. I'm just like, motherfucker, what do you think these video games that you were playing were based off of? They're based off of these types of movies, and it's just exceptional. It was an exceptionally made movie.
Yeah, well, and he does another thing we talked about earlier on. His casting choices are very, very deliberate and purposeful in that you've got these two main characters who are essentially, I can't call them unknowns because they've shown up other things, but essentially they're kind of paint your canvas onto these two people. And then in the process of their journey, they come into contact with like 7 people.
Great actors.
And every one of them is a really good, very well-known character actor that's on screen for all of about 3 minutes and delivers news to them or whatever. And you bring in that, and then they go back onto their journey. And it's such a great casting choice because that's also sort of how the war is, right? You've got your ground troops, and then you've got the fat and happy generals and stuff that are, so that when you see them, it's like the weight is there already of like, oh, this is a guy that, like, we know that Benedict Cumberbatch is not going back out onto the field with them because it's Benedict Cumberbatch, the same as they know going into that tent and talking to that character that guy's not fighting the shit that they're doing. He's just going to make a decision for them and pass on his wisdom. And I am that is always my favorite thing in casting. I've always been very obsessed with casting, but I love the idea of casting people that immediately, just based on who they are, bring the role, like the where the role exists in the piece right away, just based on who it's cast with. Of like, oh, okay, we bring all this baggage with them, and we're like, okay, well, we know that guy's not. He wasn't on the poster. He wasn't in the trailer. We know this guy is not like a main part of this.
I feel like that's like Mark Strong 101. Like,
yes.
Anytime you cast Mark Strong, you're just like, oh, really one of the best actors in the world.
Yeah.
Does anybody know who he is? Nope.
It's kind of like the reverse
That guy.
Bill Hader, where he always talks about for years he was the trailer guy, where like he was the guy that summed up the plot for the trailer, and he was like, it was great, I could never be cut from a movie. because I was always the guy that explained what was happening, and like you went to Hawaii and your ex-girlfriend showed up at the place that you were at. It's like, yep, in that movie. It is always funny to watch kind of these roles play out, but yeah, I think that's something that's a theater thing to cast character people, and even if they're big, like Benedict Cumberbatch is now a leading man, large thing, but he's a character actor. Most of these people come from the world of character actors, and it's kind of amazing to watch them, show up all in this one movie for like a minute. And know that they had to like shoot their scene in whole and with no takes, because like all of the cuts in that movie that make it appear to be seamless, it's not in whole hog scenes. That's the one thing that is tricky about those movies, is that like we can cut transitions easy, but like we go into that tent and it's a scene with Benedict Cumberbatch. He has to deliver that scene perfectly, like you're in a play. That's really where that one take makes sense to me a lot, is that's what it reminds me of, is theater.
Well, so I think what we can take kind of in thesis, what we can take back as far as Sam Mendes, because we're obviously both huge admirers. And
I want to marry him. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. That's weird.
Of course, sorry. Yeah, of course not.
That's not me.
I love him. But just look back to what Matt said originally about the films that he was trying to emulate as a kid. Repo Man, True Stories. And what was the third one?
Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas, of course. All three very different movies, and very much on. I mean, like if you were to say films were on the spectrum, I mean those are all kind of all over the place, and it's incredible to see an artist really, really kind of work with his actors in a way that he can present these different aesthetics movie by movie, and but still maintain this type of artistic integrity that I don't think is really consistent throughout most modern directors' careers. So I would say that Sam Mendes is, like I said, one of the top 5-10 directors working right now, simply because he is versatile. He can do anything at this point, in my opinion. And Spectre aside, which we both...
Hey, there's got to be an exception to prove the rule. No, I mean, this is someone that's been meticulous about picking their movies over 22 years, 23 years at this point, and deciding what they're going to do. And I mean, none of the other than Spectre, none of these movies have been plotted out for him in his career. And that I think that's kind of an interesting thing, is that, American Beauty to Road to Perdition is not, there's no through line in that other than he won Best Director. He could direct whatever he wants. I'm going to read a bunch of things. I want to do this. Then
I'm going to do a comic.
Yeah. And then I'm going to do a Desert Storm movie when we're in the middle of another war in the same area that's going over poorly. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do a fucking drama, like, God, it's suspense, like whatever Revolutionary Road is. There is no through line. The closest I can see is Revolutionary Road and Away We Go, and that Revolutionary Road could have been their grandparents for all intents and purposes. But that's the closest I can do to draw a line between the stuff, which is also what makes him such a joy to think about. What the hell is he going to choose to do next? He was for a half a minute going to do The Last Bond, which I'm glad that didn't happen.
Thank God.
It was unnecessary. And especially coming off of 1917, which unfortunately I feel was robbed a lot at, well, hard to say robbed. We had a really interesting Oscars last year, and there were three movies I wanted that to win director.
Yeah, it served to win.
Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, I want to see where he goes next more than almost anybody, because just I'm so on board with all of the choices that he tends to make.
Yeah.
So that's gonna conclude our love affair with Mr. Sam. I'm single. If he ever decides, it's not working out with that,
I think he's married.
Yeah, it didn't work out the first time, so I think I got a chance.
Or the third time.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't care. I just want a seat at the table, Ben. I just want a seat at the table. But we want to thank you for listening to.
I played the Artful Dodger.
But I won't be artfully dodging anything that you have to offer, Mr. Mendes.
That's what I said.
That's right. Oh, you know what? We'll save it for next time. We did forget to do the Nick hot take. I was going to do another Nick's hot takes, but we're running a little long. We will get to it next week. Well, thank you so much for listening to the New Way podcast. New episodes coming at you live now on Wednesdays around noontime or so. I scan them in ahead of time, but let's just say whenever Eastern Standard Time. We'll be coming at you during the middle of the week, and as many new ones as we can get you in a row as possible. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.